Hi everyone, I'm Martha. Unfortunately, I can't see who's here or your names, but I'm Martha from FIU Career and Talent Development. I am the program manager for our employer engagement team, and I support with our internship and experiential learning opportunities. This being one of them, our partnership with with Parker Dewey and their micro-internship programs. So we're excited that you're able to join us. I know this is the still part of the busy season of the year, and we'll start soon slowing down. So I hope that this is an amazing opportunity for you all to take advantage of, and I welcome you.
Thanks so much, Martha and Christine. It's such an honor to partner with you both and FIU. And I think your point about where we are in the campus recruiting season is something we're going to talk about and how this can align, whether you're in the middle of busy season, whether you haven't yet started, whether you feel like you're done. We'll talk about actionable strategies y'all can use. So I'm Jeffrey. I'm the founder and CEO of Parker Dewey. Really excited to be here. Couple of very quick housekeeping notes. First of all, yes, the session will be recorded and we will share slides afterwards. You'll get an email either later today or tomorrow. Second, I have the chat open. And if you see me looking over to the right a little bit, it's because the chat's on the other screen. I'll try to keep an eye on it throughout the presentation. Please feel free to put in comments, questions, thoughts, whatever you have. The beauty of my ADD is I'm pretty good at keeping an eye on it. I will try to answer, as I said, throughout, but we'll certainly leave a few minutes at the end for Q&A as well. Speaking of that, for today's agenda, we're going to hit a few things. We'll give a very quick overview of who we are, just as quick background and what's going on in the campus recruiting world these days. We'll talk about what a micro-internship is. Then, as I was alluding to, we'll talk about some actionable strategies that you can use right now, irrespective of where you are in your own campus recruiting process. What's most exciting is we're going to talk also about a program that is being funded through a very generous foundation where you can see this FIU students firsthand with no cost. The students are still paid for their work. There's no catch or anything else. So we'll talk about how you can use this right now. And then, as I said, we'll leave some time for Q&A. So let's jump into it. So real quickly, who is Parker Dewey? We are a 10-year-old organization. 100% of what we do is we work with companies and universities to help improve the campus recruiting process. And we do it through this concept of the micro-internship, which we will talk through. Again, we've been doing this 10 years. We work with organizations ranging from one-person startups to Fortune 100. And the whole thesis behind what we do is we help organizations both engage and assess candidates earlier in the process as a complement to their existing campus recruiting. We all know that early career recruiting has some challenges. According to the National Association of Colleges and Employers, cost per hire is $6,000 and continues to go up. And on top of it, that doesn't even take into account that about 50% of recent college grads leave their first job within the first year. On top of that, students are saying that the existing recruiting process doesn't effectively allow them to demonstrate their skills, not just the technical skills, but core skills like communication, problem solving, coachability, attention to detail, etc. Those skills that we know make the most difference in who's a great hire and who doesn't work out. We're going to show you today how you can use the Parker Dewey platform to really help you get those insights earlier in the process. So imagine before visiting FIU, whether it's for a career fair, an info session, or a tabling day, or an in-class presentation, having candidates who are engaged and excited before you set foot on campus. Or when you are on campus, being able to have meaningful discussions with the students, not the simple, here's my resume, give me the elevator pitch, or rehashing what's on your website, but actually talking about the roles in depth, having candidates excited after the visit, not just through blasting them emails and hoping they're going to show up to the various info sessions and whatnot, but students who are excited to continue to learn about your organization and show their skills. Imagine being able to have insights on their interest and their skills earlier in the process, not from one-click sort of job applications that have created this application avalanche that we're all facing, but rather real insights in students who want to learn about your organization, who want to demonstrate their skills. And by the way, even if you can't be at FIU this year, okay, we know FIU has an incredible reputation and employers from all over the country. Here's a great way to reach those students. The student who, like me, may be living in Chicago full time or from Chicago and wants to return home, but goes to school at FIU. If you're a company in Chicago or Texas or Boston or California, what a great way to reach FIU students if you can't be there. Everything we're showing you is the concept of experiential recruiting. Experiential recruiting is the intersection of employer branding and skills-based hiring. And when I talk about employer branding, we're not talking about the t-shirts or swag that you give at the career fair. We're not even talking about how well your company is known. So Nike, which has an incredibly well-known brand, obviously, every college student has heard of it. Some college students aren't thinking about Nike as a prospective employer. They're interested in data analytics or AI or finance or strategy. Nike doesn't really come top of mind, even though they're hiring for great opportunities. Or maybe you're a company that doesn't have that brand recognition, a local firm, or a B2B in manufacturing or industrial. How do you showcase who you are to those students in a way that stands out without having to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars? The other part of it is skills-based hiring. This is so top of mind for organizations. We all know that GPA and major don't really predict who's a great hire. How can you get insights on their skills earlier in the process in a way that's not captured from a transcript or a resume or even an interview, and get that mutual assessment of fit? And again, we're not just talking, can someone use Power BI or code in Python or do a discounted cash flow in Excel, but we're also talking those core skills, the ones that make all the difference. All of this is possible through the concept of a micro-internship. So what are micro-internships? I'm not going to read this. As I said, I'll share this afterwards. The short version is these are very, very short-term paid professional projects that FIU students can do as a way to learn about your company, but also to demonstrate their skills. These are not projects that require a whole bunch of onboarding or training or anything else. These are projects FIU students, whether it's a first-year student or a senior who's about to graduate, can do on their own using their own info. That makes it easy for you. You don't have to share data or access to systems or train. You're able to give them these projects to really showcase your company and get insights in their skills. A couple other very quick things to note. They're not your employees or contractors when they're doing the project. They're on our books. To the extent they get hired for a summer internship or full-time role, there's no temp to perm or staffing fee. We're not a staffing firm. We want to create these connections. That's why we partner with organizations like FIU. We don't want to get in the way. As one of the college students described this, think about a micro-internship like a job date that's part of the recruiting process, where the summer internship is like getting engaged, the full-time role is getting married. So again, this does not replace what you're doing. It does not replace the internship or the co-op or the in-class capstone, but rather is a valuable complement. As opposed to it being hypothetical, let's show some few examples. So one of the things we do at Parker Dewey is we'll take entry-level job descriptions or summer internship roles and actually make recommendations of what micro-internships are that align. So for instance, on the left is a snapshot of a company's job description. We pulled out all the filler for, again, an entry-level data marketer. Perfect micro-internship is do a competitive campaign analysis. Again, that company is not sharing data. That company is not sharing information. The student is out there doing their own research on competitors and pulling the data and putting together a report. That gives you insights on their market research skills or creative thinking or presentation without having to share any data, without any onboarding or training. We've seen it with roles that are on a factory floor. So this organization was hiring individuals for mechatronics and robotics. Not going to give a student a micro internship where they're working with a multi-million-dollar piece of equipment where they could lose an arm, but the project might be best practices or training manual development. It's not that that company actually needed it, though it's wonderful if they do, but rather it's a way to understand the student's skills, both those technical skills, but also those core skills. Or roles like being a developer. You're not going to give them access to your core code base or an application that's on the Apple Store, but let's have them do research on how AI is being used in coding. Again, teasing out those thoughts. One of the things that I like about this is the assessment is built into the process. Every step of the way, employers are getting insights into the skills of FIU students. So I alluded before to the application avalanche of the one-click job app. This removes that. From the process itself, you're able to get insights on if that student's a self-starter, their attention to detail. Do they have authentic interest in your organization? When they're working on the project, you're getting perspectives on how do they communicate? Do they take feedback? Do they turn in the work on time? And then from the work product itself, things like problem solving or intellectual curiosity. And I'll show you some examples of all of these things as we go through. So while the value is clearly there for employers, one of the questions we always get is, why do students do it? Well, 95% of college students said this is how they want to be recruited. This is how they want to learn about companies. This is how they want to demonstrate skills. The current playbook just ain't working. One of the things that also came out was students want to be recruited earlier. During their first and second year, they're most interested in learning about companies and roles and departments. But oftentimes when they come to the career fairs or info sessions, they're being told, come back when you're a junior or senior. We'll show you as we go through this, how you can use this to engage and keep those candidates warm. Because at the end of the day, this supports your existing hiring strategy. So we're going to go through 4 case studies of how you can use this before the career fair or the info session, or for those companies that feel like they might be behind because the career fairs have wrapped up, but they're not ready to recruit until later, how you can use this. For those companies that have been on campus, how you can use this to keep students warm, or to get insights on their skills even before the interview. And as I said, if you can't visit campus, how to leverage this. So let's jump in. The first example is with one of the preeminent global healthcare organizations. It's a hospital system. They had 2 very specific key challenges. One, competition for the allied health roles was off the charts. There is a massive shortage of students studying to be X-ray technicians and the like. The second issue they were having was they wanted to drive interest by students, including those who weren't necessarily thinking about healthcare, both for those healthcare roles, but also for other departments they were hiring in, marketing, finance, HR, etc. So one of the things this organization did is before they visited campus in a given year, they actually posted some micro-internships, both tied to the allied health roles, but also roles tied to HR and accounting and those other areas. Here's what happened. Before setting foot on this campus, they had a pool of students that were excited to visit their booth or their info session. Not just, again, the allied health, but across all of the different departments and clubs. These projects provide a differentiator, not just to get them to the booth, but during the event. So instead of, as I alluded to, rehashing what's on the website, they were actually discussing the real projects that students could work on following the career fair. What they also did is they had insights on the students up front based upon who applied, who worked on projects, etc., so they could make sure who to focus on, who to invite to certain events they were having. And these could be students with certain skills or tied to geographic areas that align to their needs. And again, they had these insights before setting foot on campus, reinforcing what they were doing. So while this example was focused on before the visit, the same playbook works even if you can't be there. The second example is about after the event. How do we keep the students warm? Again, this organization was having great students show up and express interest, but they couldn't really figure out how can they keep them engaged during that period before they were actually conducting the interviews. So we know students aren't responding to those generic emails, and we know they're not interested in yet another webinar. So what this global medical device company did is they took a different approach. They initially focused on high volume business development roles that were always tough to fill and had high turnover. In particular, this organization was focused on students with ties to certain geographic areas. I think it was Memphis, Austin, Andover, Massachusetts, etc. And they were also interested in students who either had a background in mechanical engineering or were student athletes. And when these students were showing up to the career fair, this organization did not want to lose them. So one of the things we did for them was we created some business development auditions, and they were crafted in a way to both be interesting to the students to keep them engaged, but also to help hiring managers assess the skills. So after the career fair, the students were invited to participate, and here's what happened. First of all, it was a success with all of the traditional metrics. Email open rates were off the charts, click-through, participation, but they also saw a massive improvement in those other metrics, the metrics that matter. Beyond keeping the students engaged, they were able to quickly determine which ones were the best fit, not based upon their major or their GPA, but based upon their actual work product. And they were able to focus on those candidates. As a result, for that class, that the initial class a couple of years ago for the business development reps, 100% of them are still at the company over a year and a half later, including one who got an Employee of the Year award. So as we know, first year attrition, as I alluded to before, is typically about 50%. In business development roles, it's typically close to 70, 80%. We have 100% retention in this case. In addition, the hiring managers loved it. In their words, they didn't waste time interviewing the wrong folks. And when they made that hiring decision, they had confidence it was the right hire, which is, again, something we'll talk about in the next example. This organization had a big challenge recruiting HR professionals. It had an incredibly strong brand name, it was a national fitness chain, but they found that a lot of the applicants were really just interested in roles at the franchises versus corporate. So they were getting a stack of resumes and spending way too much time flipping through them. So what they did was they went to hiring managers and said, tell us about a small task that would come up, an article that needed to be written, a job spec that needed to be updated. And like the first example, what this did is it provided an always-on pool of candidates. Hiring managers appreciated the ability to get this extra set of hands, while campus recruiting at the same time was building this pipeline of talent for when they were ready. In fact, one case, the learning and development team was looking for best practices on new hire onboarding. It was a real project they were trying to get done, but there just wasn't enough hours in the day. I'm sure we all have those. So they actually selected two different students to do the project. One was an HR major with a 3.9 GPA who looked amazing on paper. The other was a liberal arts major from a less prestigious school with not as high of a GPA. Here's what happened. Both students did the project. I'm sure you can see where I'm going. The student at the top was the HR major. The one with the amazing GPA turned in work that had some typos and grammatical errors, things that are tough to really tease out from an interview or resume. The other student demonstrated not only could she figure out the technical HR skills, but she also had the problem solving and communication and even the empathy. Just by looking at the deliverable, you could see how she very clearly could empathize with the hiring manager and how she presented for the work. She wound up getting hired for that summer internship and ultimately the full-time role. And this is someone who the hiring manager said they probably wouldn't have interviewed based upon the traditional process. So for the last example is about data. And again, data, whether or not you can be on campus, data to help you guide decisions, but also data to demonstrate the effectiveness of your work internally. And we know this is so important to so many HR and talent acquisition professionals now, as early career is under attack. So this global Fortune 500 company had a very small campus recruiting effort. They were not only trying to defend it internally, but they wanted to scale it up. So what they did was they focused on one of the key strategic goals of the organization, which was gender equity in STEM. They also tried to focus on some other things because their headquarters were in DC, but they had offices in other places. So like the other examples I showed you, we actually crafted a project that aligned to some of the entry-level roles. But what was different here is the company engaged ERG members. Again, here's what happened. First, they were able to reach the right candidates. From a geographic perspective, not just their DC headquarters, but students' ties to other locations like Holland, Michigan, or Rockford, or Texarkana. They could also defend the cost. So they allowed us to share their data on cost per school, which you can see, and they wouldn't allow us to share their actual metrics about cost per hire, but we are allowed to share it was about a 70% savings. And as I mentioned, this started with just one of their ERGs. They saw immediate results, both with the candidate pools, but also with existing employees who were happy because they saw these initiatives were real, not just, we need someone like you to show up at an event. And again, their words, not mine. What was also really interesting is while it started just with the ERG, it almost immediately spread to other departments that wanted to participate. Again, marketing got word of it. because a member of the marketing team was in the ERG and said, hey, can we do this? When does that ever happen with an HR initiative? And in fact, some of those departments use their own budget to scale it. And this works because it aligns to what you're doing, whether it's top of funnel, how do we reach students? How do we keep them engaged along the way? How do we get insights into skills? And how do we build the relationships that lead to better conversion and retention? And we have some actual metrics. Again, cost per hire, typically 40 to 80% cost savings using this approach. First year retention, 98%. 98%, it's incredible. And again, we're seeing this truly lead to equitable pathways for everyone. So here's the most exciting part of this, that through the very generous support of a foundation, everything I showed you, you can see with FIU students with no cost. So what that means is you can enhance your existing recruiting there. You can reach students aligned to your goal, get insights on their skills before the interviews, keep them engaged afterwards, and really get a competitive advantage. And this program exists because the foundation really wanted to help connect employers with the amazing FIU students to, again, help create those pathways. And not only does it cover the cost of the micro-internships, but everything I showed you up front, all of the data, all of the insights, ways to build your employer brand, ways to save time, improve cost, improve satisfaction, etc. Again, it's kind of a no-brainer. So how do you actually get started? Well, as I said, we always like to be challenged. Send us a job description. You can use the link below or the QR code, and I'll try to paste the link in the chat if I can multitask. Here we go. Send us a job description. Could be a link, could be a PDF, could be some bullet points for a role that you're trying to fill, or that you're always trying to fill, or a role that's really difficult that you don't see any way this would work. We have an entire team here that all they do is take those full-time roles and convert them into micro-internships. Micro-internships that you can use without, again, onboarding, sharing information, sharing access, and also get insights into the skills. And think about it if you haven't yet visited campus. Here's a way to build that pipeline. Or after you're done, how to keep the student, or to get insights in candidates. Or if you can't be on campus this year, again, all strategies that you can apply, irrespective of where you are in the cycle. So I'm going to take a sip of coffee. Christina or Martha, anything you wanted to add or ask?
At the moment, no, but thank you for this information. It's great. It's a great program and great that they're still allowing funds for this at this point.
It is incredible. The DeLuca Foundation is just, it's an amazing organization. And they're truly focused on creating these win-win outcomes, outcomes that help the students, but also outcomes that help employers, whether it's employers that are actively recruiting and trying to find the right talent, or it could be employers that have small tasks on their plate, that the opportunity to give it to an FIU student not only helps them as a busy professional, but provides this amazing opportunity to the FIU student.
Yeah, we're excited about it. We love promoting this program to our students. We hear a lot of great feedback about what they've learned and how exciting it's been for them and how that's translated for them professionally and the connections made. So definitely one of the biggest perks of this is also serves as a pipeline. So seeing our employers be able to try this process out and then recruit from our students is amazing.
Well, and I'm happy you brought that up. And I sort of glossed over it before, but again, this is how 95% of students said they want to be recruited. Martha and Christina, please correct me if I'm wrong. We as a platform, we have very few rules. One of them, though, is we do not allow colleges or universities to require it. They can encourage, they can nudge, they can suggest, as Martha said, but it's not allowed to be required. And that's important for you as an employer because it means when the students are applying, it's because they're authentically interested. And Martha and Christina, I mean, when you think about other initiatives, oftentimes they require that forcing of the student. they're often, you have to do this, you must do this. And again, we know it's being done with the best intentions. Like having students proactively saying, I want to do this is pretty incredible.
Absolutely. Our students are non-traditional here sometimes, right? A good majority of them are not. We are an international university. We are a commuter school. We are first gen. So some of our students are not prepared to take that leap of faith into a full-time internship or a part-time internship because they are most concerned about putting bread and butter on the table, right? They want to explore these fields, they want to break in, but there are things that they do prioritize over this piece. And then they come out and they're stressed out and they're having those connection issues. While we're there to serve them and support them in that process, the reality is that there's programs available to them like this program, like Parker Dewey, who offer these experiences short term and great benefits both to the students and the employer. So definitely
It, it,
one of the best programs out
aw, that's
there.
sweet. Thank you. No, but and one of the things that's cool is the students are amazing. I mean, we've been doing this 10 years, 98% success rate on the projects, 98%. That's off the charts. The students have the skills, whether it's around communication, problem solving, the technical skills required for the role. They're just looking for the opportunity to showcase them. And to your point, a lot of times they get passed over or missed by traditional processes. So with that, if there's no other questions, please, please, please feel free to use the QR code or the link in the chat. Send us your job spec. Ask us questions. We love doing this stuff. And again, it's just such an honor to collaborate with Martha and Christine and the entire FIU team. You guys are amazing, and the program and the students are just so great. Anything you want to add before we close out?
No, thank you to those who were able to make some time and participate in this. And I hope you find it fruitful.
Thank you so much. And
Thank
with
you.
that, happy Thursday, everyone. This concludes the webinar. Bye.
Take care.
Thank you. Bye.